Chapter 8. Sky's the Limit. For the last time, we are not moving to Atlanta, Toya said, sitting on the couch in the lounge of Wildside Studios. They'd just finished singing background on yet another demo. After all the free background work they'd done, Kenny was finally getting them paid. A pittance. They'd never even heard back after the Triple Large audition. Toya knew, out of all of them, Mimi would be the most hurt, but she hadn't even mentioned it. Ever since they'd come back from New York a week ago, Atlanta was all Mimi talked about. Used to be that Mimi was the quiet one. The first time they performed at a talent show, she'd come down with such a severe case of stage fright that they almost had to pull out at the last minute. But Toya had seen her toughen up a lot over the years. Being in the group had a lot to do with it. Mimi had a beautiful voice, but it took hearing applause from other people for her to appreciate it. And then, after they gained a rep, all those catty girls from school who had once hated on her were out in the audience applauding too. Mimi had always had a strong backbone, though. With that flaky mother of hers, she had no choice. It had just taken a while for it to show itself. Now look at her. She was all ready to pack up and move to Atlanta, a place where they didn't know a soul. Toya wasn't going anywhere. Her entire family was in Toledo, and she wasn't about to move to Atlanta to scrape and struggle, chasing some impossible dream. And after what Kesha had told her that afternoon, Kesha wasn't going anywhere either. "Why are you so desperate to move to Atlanta all of a sudden, anyway?" Toya asked. "Toledo does not breed stars," Mimi said. Kesha was slumped down at the end of the couch, and Toya shot her a look as she said, "Yeah, but Kesha can breed here." Mimi looked quizzically at Toya. Then she turned and caught Kesha making a face at Toya behind her back. "What does that mean?" Kesha smiled nervously. "Well, I have some good news." No, Mimi thought. Please do not say what I know you're about to say. "I'm not getting fat," Kesha said. "I'm pregnant." Mimi looked at Toya as if she needed confirmation. Toya kept her eyes directed forward at the television and mumbled, "Don't look at me." Mimi turned back to Kesha. "But you're not going to have it." "Mimi!" Toya admonished in Kesha's defense. "Hell yes," Kesha said, terribly hurt. She rubbed her belly. "I'm keeping my baby." "You better congratulate her," Toya said, "and stop being so selfish." "Selfish?" Mimi wanted to say. "I turned down a solo deal to stick with the group. And now Kesha wants to have a baby with a drug dealer who already has 2 other kids and ruin everything?" "Kesha, you have no job. Your boyfriend is a drug dealer," Mimi said. "He's getting out of that," Kesha snapped back reflexively. "Anyway, we're getting married." Toya hadn't heard that part of the news. "You are?" "Yeah, we're going to shop for a ring tomorrow." Mimi couldn't believe it. At that moment, she realized she'd been a complete fool. She was always thinking about everyone else, Toya, Kesha, her mother. It was time to start thinking about herself. "Well, great," Mimi said. "I have some good news, too." The girls looked at her expectantly. "I'm signing a solo deal with Triple Large." "Stop lying," Kesha said. "I am," Mimi confirmed, a bit haughtily. "Since when?" Toya demanded, wondering if Kesha's news had sent Mimi off the deep end. Was she making this up? "Since Lamont Jackson offered me one," Mimi said, thinking that Lamont may have been right. They probably would have dumped her if either of them had been offered the solo deal. Apparently, it was every woman for herself. "That's where I went that day in New York. There was no guy. Daryl took me to Lamont's apartment, this huge penthouse, and he's dying to sign me to a deal, a solo deal." "And you're gonna dump us just like that?" Kesha said angrily. "No," Mimi said. "I turned them down, for you. But since you obviously don't care about doing this, you go on and have your baby because I'm taking the offer." "You can't," Kesha wailed. Toya was surprised by the edge in Mimi's voice. She was acting like Kesha had done this purposely to hurt her. But what was Kesha complaining about? "Kesha, you're pregnant," Toya reminded her. "But I never said I was quitting the group," Kesha insisted. "I can have my baby, and 7 months from now everything is back to normal." "I can't wait 7 months," Mimi said, arms folded. Imani, Lamont's assistant, had called Mimi at home that morning. Imani had been shocked when Mimi told her that she wasn't coming back to New York. Daryl hadn't said anything. Mimi decided that first thing tomorrow she was going to call her back. God, what if they wanted to take back the offer? What if they thought she was some kind of temperamental diva? "Look," Toya said before Kesha jumped up to fight. Pregnant or not, she would get into it with anyone, even Mimi. "I'm quitting the group, okay? So it's all settled. Mimi, go do your thing." Mimi's anger drained away in an instant. "You mean that?" "Yes, I've been thinking about quitting for a while. The only reason I went through with the audition is because I knew it meant so much to you two." "Why didn't you say something?" Mimi asked. "Same reason you didn't say anything to us about them offering you a deal. Because I knew you'd be upset." Toya took Mimi's hand. "I went to performing arts because I liked to dance, and it was better than going to the horrible school in my district. And singing in our group was fun, but it was always more like a hobby for me. But for you, Mimi, it's your dream. Lamont obviously thinks you have what it takes to make it come true, and you do. I always knew that. So I say go for it." Mimi hugged Toya, then turned to Kesha, hoping for her approval too. After years of getting into scrapes, Kesha had learned one thing: to recognize when she couldn't win. After a long silence during which she rubbed her belly, she grudgingly said, "Go on, girl. Just don't forget about your old friends."
This ends side 1 of cassette 2. Please turn the cassette over and start side 2 at the same point.